Book 4. What the sea god said. They came to Sparta, a land of caves and valleys, and drove to Menelaus' house. They found him hosting a wedding feast for many guests to celebrate his children's marriages. In Troy, he had declared that he would give his daughter to Achilles' son, who ruled the Myrmidons. Now he was sending her with dowry gifts of horse-drawn chariots. The gods had made the marriage come to pass, and he was welcoming a Spartan bride, Elector's daughter, for his well-loved son, strong Megapenthes, mothered by a slave. The gods had given Helen no more children after the beautiful Hermione, image of Aphrodite, all in gold. Neighbors and family were feasting gladly under the king's high roof. The bard was singing and strumming, and 2 acrobats were swimming and leading them in dance. Telemachus and Nestor's son stopped by the palace doors and held their horses. Menelaus' guard, Eteonius, ran out and saw them there, and then hurried back inside to tell his master. Your Majesty, there are 2 men outside, strangers who seem like sons of Zeus. Please tell me, should we take off the harness from their horses, or send them off to find another host? Flushed, Menelaus shouted angrily, You used to have some brains, now you are talking like a silly child. We, too, were fed by many different hosts before returning home, as we may hope for Zeus to keep us safe in future times. Untack their horses, lead them in to dine. So Eteonius rushed out from the palace and ordered other slaves to follow him. They freed the sweating horses from their yoke and tied them by the manger, which they filled with emmer that was filled with bright white barley. They leaned the carriage up against the wall and led their guests inside the godlike house. The boys looked round the palace in amazement. The lofty halls of famous Menelaus shone like the dazzling light of sun or moon. When they had satisfied their eyes with staring, they went to take a bath in polished tubs. The slave girls helped them wash and rubbed them down in olive oil, then dressed them in wool cloaks and tunics, and then seated them beside the son of Atreus, King Menelaus. A house girl brought a basin made of silver and water in a golden jug. She poured it over their hands to wash, then set a table of polished wood beside them, and a humble slave girl brought bread and many canapes, a lavish spread. The carver carried platters with every kind of meat, and set before them cups made of gold. Then ruddy Menelaus welcomed them both, and told them, Help yourselves, enjoy the food. When you have shared our meal, we will begin to ask who you are. Your fathers must be scepter-bearing kings. The sons of peasants do not look like you. With that, he took the dish of rich roast meat cut from the back, which was his special meal, and offered it to them. They reached their hands to take the food set out in front of them. After their thirst and hunger had been sated, Telemachus turned round to Nestor's son, ducking his head so no one could hear. Pisistraster, that's his name. I can't ever say it. Whatever. That's the guy's name that he's traveling with, okay? Nestor's son. Dear friend, do you see how these echoing halls are shining bright with bronze and silver, gold and ivory and amber? It is full of riches as the palace of Zeus in Mount Olympus. I am struck with awe. When Menelaus heard his words, he spoke to them in turn. His words flew out. No mortal, my dear boys, can rival Zeus. His halls and home and property are deathless. Some man may match my wealth, or maybe not. I suffered for it. I was lost, adrift at sea for 8 long years. I traipsed through Cyprus, Phoenicia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Sidon, and Arabe, and Libya, where lambs are born with horns. Their ewes give birth 3 times a year. The master and his slave have milk and cheese and meat. The flock provides sweet milk year-round. But when I wandered there, accumulating wealth, someone crept in and killed my brother. His own scheming wife betrayed him. I can take no joy in all my wealth. Whoever they may be, your fathers have surely told you how much I have suffered. I lost my lovely home, and I was parted for many years from all my splendid riches. I wish I had stayed here, with just 1/3 of all the treasure I have now acquired, if those who died at Troy, so far away from Argive pastures, were alive and well. I sit here in my palace mourning all who died, and often weeping. Sometimes tears bring comfort to my heart, but not for long. Cold grief grows sickening. I miss them all, but one man most. When I remember him, I cannot eat or sleep, since no one labored like him, Odysseus. His destiny was suffering, and mine, the endless pain of missing him. We do not even know if he is still alive. He has been gone so long. His faithful wife and old Laertes must grieve for him, and young Telemachus, who was newborn when he went away. These words roused in the boy a desperate need to mourn his father. Tears rolled down his face and splashed on the ground. He lifted up his cloak to hide his eyes. But Menelaus noticed and wondered whether he should wait until the boy first spoke about his father or ask. As he was hesitating, Helen emerged from her high-ceilinged, fragrant bedroom like Artemis, who carries golden arrows. Adraste set a special chair for her. Alcippe spread upon it soft wool blankets, and Philo brought a silver sewing basket, given to her by Alcandre, the wife of Polybus, who lived in Thebes, in Egypt, where people have extraordinary wealth. He gave 2 silver tubs to Menelaus, a pair of tripods, and 10 pounds of gold. His wife gave other lovely gifts for Helen, a golden spindle and this silver basket on wheels. The rims were finished off with gold. Philo, her girl, brought out that basket now, packed full of yarn she had already spun. A spindle wound around with purple wool was laid across it. She sat down and put her feet upon the stool and asked her husband, "Do we know who these men are, Menelaus, who have arrived here in our house? Shall I conceal my thoughts or speak? I feel compelled to say, the sight of them amazes me. I never saw 2 people so alike as this boy and Telemachus, the son of spirited Odysseus, the child he left behind, a little newborn baby. The day the Greeks marched off to Troy, their minds fixated on the war and violence. They made my face the cause that hounded them." High-colored Menelaus answered, "Wife, I saw the likeness too. Odysseus has hands like those legs, that hair, that head, that glancing gaze. And when I spoke just now about Odysseus and all the things he suffered for my sake, the boy grimaced, and flood of tears were rolling down his cheeks. He raised his purple cloak to hide his eyes." The son of Nestor spoke. "King Menelaus, you are right. This is truly his son, just as you say he is. But he is shy, and feels he should not speak too boldly in your presence right away. Your voice is like a god's to us. Lord Nestor sent me to guide him here. He longed to see you, to get some news from you or some advice. A son whose father is away will suffer intensely if he has no man at home to help him. In the absence of his father, Telemachus has no one to protect him." Then Menelaus answered, "So the son of my dear friend who worked so hard for me has come here to my house? I always thought that I would greet that friend with warmth beyond all other Argives. If Zeus let us sail home with all speed across the sea, I would have brought him from Ithaca with all his wealth, his son and people, and bestowed on him a town in Argos, driving out the natives from somewhere hereabouts under my rule. We would have constantly spent time together. Nothing would have divided us in love and joy till death's stark clouds surrounded us. But I suppose the god begrudged our friendship and kept that poor unlucky man from home." His words made everybody want to cry. Helen was weeping, as was Menelaus. Nestor's son's eyes were full of tears for irreplaceable Antilochus, killed by the noble son of shining dawn. Mindful of him, he spoke with words like wings. "King Menelaus, when we spoke of you back home in our own halls, my father Nestor always declared you are exceptional for common sense. So listen to me now. I disapprove of crying during dinner. Dawn will soon come. Weep then. There is no harm in mourning when a person dies. It is the only honor we can pay the dead, to cut our hair and drench our cheeks with tears. I had a brother named Antilochus, one of the bravest fighters in the army, a sprinter and a warrior. He died. I never got to meet him or to see him. Perhaps you did?" King Menelaus answered, "My friend, you speak just as a wise man should, like somebody much older than yourself. You show your father's wisdom in your speech. A lineage is easy to discern when Zeus spins out a life of happiness in marriage and in offspring. So he gave good luck to Nestor all his life. He aged at home, in comfort, and his sons are wise and skillful spearsmen. Yes, we will stop crying and turn our minds to dinner once again. Let them pour water on our hands. At dawn, Telemachus and I can talk at length." At that, the nimble house slave of mighty Menelaus poured the water over their hands. They helped themselves to food from laden tables. Then the child of Zeus, Helen, decided she would mix the wine with drugs to take all pain and rage away, to bring forgetfulness of every evil. Whoever drinks this mixture from the bowl will shed no tear that day, not even if her mother or father die, nor even if soldiers kill her brother or her darling son with bronze spears before her very eyes. Helen had these powerful magic drugs from the wife of Thon from Egypt, where fertile fields produce the most narcotics, some good, some dangerous. The people there are skillful doctors. They are the healer's people. She mixed the wine and told the slave to pour it, and then she spoke again. "Now, Menelaus, and you, 2 noble sons of noble men, Zeus gives us good and bad at different times. He has the power. Sit here then and eat, and I will entertain you with a story. Enjoy it. It is fitting to the times. I cannot tell of all the challenges steadfast Odysseus has undergone, but I will tell you what that brave man did at Troy when the Achaeans were in trouble. He beat himself and bruised his body badly and put a ragged cloak on like a slave, then shuffled through the enemy city streets. In his disguise, he seemed a poor old beggar, hardly a man to sail with the Achaeans. He crept through Troy like that, and no one knew him except for me. I saw through his disguise and questioned him. He was too smart to talk, acting evasive. But I washed and scrubbed him with oil and dressed him, and I swore an oath that I would not reveal him to the Trojans before he had got back to his own camp. He told me all the things the Greeks were planning. On his way back, he used his long bronze sword to slaughter many Trojans, and he brought useful intelligence to tell the Greeks. The Trojan women keened in grief, but I was glad. By then, I wanted to go home. I wish that Aphrodite had not made me go crazy when she took me from my country, and made me leave my daughter, and the bed I shared with my fine, handsome, clever husband. And Menelaus said, "Yes, wife, quite right. I have been round the world, and I have met many heroic men, and known their minds. I never saw a man so resolute as that Odysseus, how tough he was, and what impressive fortitude he showed when inside the wooden horse. We fighters lurked inside to bring destruction to the Trojans. You came there too. Some spirit who desired to glorify the Trojans urged you on. Godlike Deiphobus was following you. 3 times you went around the hollow belly, touching the hiding place and calling out us Greeks by name. You put on different voices for each man's wife. Then I and Diomedes and good Odysseus inside the horse heard you call out to us, and we too wanted to go out, or to answer from in there. Odysseus prevented us from going. Then all the other sons of Achaeans were quiet. Anticlus was still wished to answer. Odysseus's hand clamped shut his mouth and saved us all. He held him there, like that, until Athena led you far away." Weighing these words, Telemachus replied, "But Menelaus, all this makes it worse. My father's courage could not save his life, even if he had a heart of iron. So now, show us to bed. We need the comfort of being lulled into a sweet, deep sleep." Then Argive Helen told her girls to spread beds on the porch and pile on them fine rugs of purple and lay blankets over them, with woolly covers on the very top. The girls went out with torches in their hands and made the beds. A slave led out the guests. Telemachus and Nestor's handsome son slept in the front room. Menelaus slept far back inside the lofty house. Beside him lay marvelous Helen in her flowing gown. Soon dawn was born, her fingers bright with roses. Gruff Menelaus jumped out of bed, got dressed, and strapped his sharp sword to his shoulder, then tied his sandals on his well-oiled feet. He went out of his bedroom like a god, approached Telemachus, and spoke to him. "What need has brought you here, Telemachus, to Sparta, over such expanse of sea? Private or public business? Tell me truly." Telemachus inhaled and then replied, "King Menelaus, son of Atreus, I came in search of news about my father. My house is being eaten up, our wealth is ruined, my whole home is full of men who mean me harm, my mother's loutish suitors. Each day they kill more sheep, more longhorn cattle, so I am begging you, here on my knees, tell me the dreadful news if he is dead. Perhaps you saw it with your eyes or heard tales of his travels. He was surely born to suffer in extraordinary ways. Please do not try to sweeten bitter news from pity. Tell me, tell me truly if you saw him and how he was. If my heroic father ever helped you at Troy when things were bad, keep that in mind right now and tell the truth." Flushed, Menelaus shouted out in anger, "Damn them! These cowards want to steal the bed of one whose heart is braver than their own, as when a deer lays down 2 newborn fawns still suckling in the lair of some strong lion and goes to look for pasture over slopes and grassy valleys. When the lion comes back to his own bed, he brings down doom on them. So will Odysseus upon these men. O Father Zeus, Athena, and Apollo, I pray he is as strong as when he stood to wrestle Philomelides on Lesbos and hurled him to the ground, and we all cheered. So may Odysseus attack the suitors. May all their lives be brief, their weddings cursed. As for your questions, I will not deceive you. I will not hide a single word I heard from that old sea god Proteus. Although I longed to come back home away from Egypt, the gods prevented me, since I had failed to offer perfect hecatombs, which is like sacrifices. They always desire obedience. There is an island out in the sea, beside the coast of Egypt, named Pharos. If a clear wind blows your ship, it takes all day to travel to that island. Its harbor has good anchorage, and there men draw dark water up and then launch off to sea. But I was held for 20 days by gods. No winds appeared to guide my ships across the water's back. All our supplies would have been gone, and all our hope. But then a goddess pitied me. The child of Proteus, the old sea god. She met me, pacing sadly all alone. My men were off around the island, fishing with hooks as usual. Hunger pinched their bellies. She stood beside me, and she spoke to me. Stranger, Are you so foolish that you choose to give up and take pleasure in your pain? There is no end in sight. You have been stuck here on this island for so long. Your men grow weak at heart. I answered her and said, whoever you may be, for sure a goddess, I tell you I am trapped against my will. I must have sinned against the deathless gods who live in heaven. Please explain which spirit is blocking me from going home across the teeming sea. God must know everything. That shining goddess answered me at once. Stranger, I will be frank with you. A deathless old sea god haunts this place, named Proteus of Egypt, who can speak infallibly, who knows the depths of seas, and serves Poseidon. They say he is the one who fathered me. If you can somehow lie in wait and catch him, he will explain how you can get back home, plotting your path where fish leap through the waters. And if you wish it, Prince, he will explain what happened in your home, both good and bad, while you were gone on this long, painful journey. Those were her words. I answered, tell me, please, how I can trap this ancient god, so he will not see me too soon and get away. It is not easy for a man to catch a god. The goddess answered me at once. Stranger, I will instruct you thoroughly. When the sun hits the midpoint of the sky, the old god bobs above the salty water, and the breath of Zephyr hides him in dark shade. He goes to take his nap inside the caves. Around him sleep the clustering seals, the daughters of lovely Lady Brine. Their breath smells sour from gray seawater, pungent, salty depths. Select the 3 best men you have on board, and when dawn breaks, I will take all of you down to the shore and set you in a line. Let me explain the old god's tricks. He will first count the seals and walk around among them. When he has counted them and checked them all, he lies down in the middle, like a shepherd among his flock of sheep. When you observe him sleeping, gather all your force and strength and hold him there, despite his desperate struggles. In trying to escape, he will change shape to every animal on earth, and then, water and holy fire, you must hold fast, unshaken, and press harder. Keep him down. At last, he will assume again the form in which he went to sleep, and he will speak and question you. Then, warrior, release your forceful hold on that old god and ask him which god is angry with you and the way to cross the fish-filled waters and go home. With that, she sank beneath the deep sea waves. I went down to the ships upon the sand. My heart was surging in me as I walked. Arriving at the ships and at the shore, we made our meal. Then came immortal night. We went to sleep beside the water's edge. When dawn appeared, her fingers bright with flowers, I walked beside the spreading sea along the dunes and prayed intensely to the gods. Then I chose out my 3 most trusted men. The goddess dove down deep inside the sea and brought 4 seal skins up from underwater, new flayed, to help her plot against her father. She scooped out hiding places in the sand and sat to wait. We came right up to her. She laid us in a row and put a skin on each. It would have been a dismal hideout, stinking of salt-bred seals. Who would lie down to rest beside a creature from the sea? But she brought sweet ambrosia to save us. She, very kindly, put it in our nostrils to take away the stench of seal. We waited all morning, apprehensively, and then, out of the sea, there rose a pod of seals. They lay along the shore. At noon, the god emerged above the waves. He went among his fatted seals and counted out their number. He counted us among the first of them, suspecting nothing. Then he lay down too. With a great shout, we pounced on him and grabbed him. The old god still remembered all his tricks, and first became a lion with a mane, then snake, then leopard, then a mighty boar, then flowing water, then a leafy tree. But we kept holding on. Our hearts stood firm. At last, that ancient sorcerer grew tired, and then he asked me, Son of Atreus, what god devised this plan with you and taught you to lurk and capture me against my will? What do you want from me? And I replied, Old god, why do you want to throw me off? You know I have been trapped here on this island for far too long with no way out. My heart grows faint. So tell me, gods, know everything. What spirit stops my journey? And how can I get home across the watery shoals of fish? At once he answered me and told me this. You should have given Zeus and other gods fine offerings to speed your journey home across the wine-dark sea. It is your fate not to go home or see the ones you love until you go again to Egypt's river, watered by Zeus, and kill 100 cows to please the deathless gods who live in heaven. Then they will let you travel where you wish. I felt heartbroken that I had to cross the misty sea and go again to Egypt, a long and bitter journey, but I answered, Sir, I will do exactly as you say. But come now, tell me this and tell me truly. Did all the Greeks sail safely home by ship, whom Nestor and myself left there in Troy? Did any meet a dreadful death at sea, on his own ship, or in familiar arms, after the war wound up? When I said this, at once he answered me and said these things. O son of Atreus, why ask me this? You have no need to know or learn my mind. When I have told you, you will not be long able to hold back tears. So many men were killed, and many left behind at Troy. Just 2 of all the bronze-clad captains died while traveling back home. 1 more perhaps may be alive, trapped somewhere out at sea. Ajax was drowned. His ships were sunk. Poseidon first drove him to the rocks of Gyrae, then rescued him from the sea. He would have lived despite Athena's hatred, but he made a crazy boast when he survived the waves against the wishes of the gods. Poseidon heard his rash words. At once he seized his trident in mighty hands and hit the Gyran rock. 1 half remained. The other, on which Ajax sat as he boasted, cracked right off and fell into the sea and carried him deep down. The boundless waves washed over him. He drank the salty brine and died. But Agamemnon survived. The goddess Hera saved his fleet. When he had almost reached the craggy mountain of Malea, a gust of wind took hold and bore him over waves where fish were jumping, across the rumbling depths to where all farms are finished, where Thyestes used to live, and now his son Aegisthus. After that, the route was clear. The gods made all winds fair. Then, joyfully, he stepped foot in his country, and touched and kissed the earth of his dear home. He wept hot floods of tears from happiness. But from the lookout post the watchman saw him. Scheming, Aegisthus paid that man 2 talents of gold to watch all year. So Agamemnon could not slip past unseen or summon up his will to fight. The spry rushed off to tell the king. Aegisthus formed a plan at once. He chose the 20 best of men in the land to lurk in ambush, and he told the house slaves to cook a feast. He rode out on his carriage and summoned Agamemnon, who suspected nothing. Aegisthus killed him over dinner, just as a person kills an ox at manger. All of the men who came with him were killed, and all those of Aegisthus, all were killed.